Here.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Here.
Commissioner Pritzos,
Here.
Commissioner Lawson,
Here.
Commissioner Reed is absent, Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins,
Here.
Commissioner Sperber.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Rundle, can I get you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay. Next up is public comment. I'm going to open it for random public comment at this particular point in time. Anybody wishing to make public comment, please step forward. That you can make public comment on anything you want to comment on. Okay?
So if I wanted to comment on ours, is this when I would do it?
No, for you, if you want to comment on yours, I would wait until your item. But you're welcome to do it now if you would like.
I'll wait.
Okay. All right, seeing none, I will close public comment. Approval of agenda. Can I get approval of the motion, please?
I motion to approve it.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Rossin. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
And I have a second by Commissioner Pritzos.
It's taking a long time.
It is. It's coming.
There we go.
Oh, well,
Nope.
see,
Sorry.
Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins,
That was my bad.
that's all right.
Totally my bad.
All right, can I get you to cast your votes, please? Thank you.
Now we do.
Well, maybe. Okay. Yes? Okay. Moving on, maybe. Are we good, Jolene? Okay. I think we're all stuck at
It's just being
the
slow.
motion to approve, but that's okay. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on. Approval of the minutes, consideration, discussion, and possible action to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission study session held on Tuesday, August 15th, 2023, and the Planning Commission meeting held on Thursday, August 17th, 2023. Can I get a motion, please? I have a motion by Commissioner Pritzos and a second by Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins. You want to say it?
Yeah, sure. I move to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission study session held on Tuesday, August 15th, 2023, and the Planning Commission meeting held on Thursday, August 17th, 2023.
Okay. And let's see if we can get this one to work. Cast your votes, please.
Oh, and actually, I realized I wasn't here. So I should not have approved that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Is that a problem, Mr.?
Well, can someone else second the motion?
I'll
Somebody else?
second it.
There you go.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right. Okay. Motion passes. Okay, next up on the agenda is, oh, here we go. We are coming to our public hearing items. Consideration, PC, yes, sir. What can I do for you?
Commissioner Richie Elkins, were you saying you're abstaining or you're saying you just didn't want a second? Were you voting on that item?
No, I'm abstaining. I was not here. I was at a
Okay,
So you would need to claim that you are abstaining on that item.
I was trying to.
Just verbalize it.
Okay, so. Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins, I abstain from the last motion.
thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Absolutely. Okay, now moving on. These are public hearing items. PCN 05100/MAJ23-0001. Miss Ray, good evening.
Good evening. Jeff Kramer, members of the Planning Commission, and David Ray, City Planner of the Division, here to present this item to you today. So we are here to consider a major deviation from allowed height for a fence for the rear.
Pull the microphone closer, Danny.
So we're here today to consider a major deviation from allowed height for a fence for 1186 Glendora Lane in the Kylie Ranch South Plan Development. The approximately 6,142 square foot site is outlined in red. Here on, I'm sorry. There we go. Here on the vicinity map, it's developed with a single-family residence, again, located within the Kylie Ranch South Plan Development, and more specifically in the Triple Crown 7A subdivision. Uses to the north, the south, the west, and the east are single-family residential, and the home backs up to Los Altos Parkway between Sparks Boulevard and Vista Boulevard. There we go. So what is a major deviation? It allows up to a 50% deviation from a measurable standard and as low as a 10%, such as height or for setbacks. The applicant is requesting a 1 foot 4 inch deviation for both the rear and side fencing. The fencing is already constructed. While the code allows the Planning Commission to approve such a deviation, the Planning Commission must consider the impacts to surrounding uses. Required fence height is 6 feet in the Kylie Ranch South Plan Development Handbook. I'll just refer to it as handbook from this point forward. The standard is shown in both text and as a visual exhibit, illustrated exhibit in the handbook, and specifically addresses Collector Street fencing. Los Altos Parkway is identified in the handbook as a collector street. Now, it was brought up in the study session whether or not Los Altos is still a collector street. And from what I understand from the city's transportation manager, it is now classified as an arterial, but it still meets a lot of the standards of a collector street in terms of literally collecting from the residential neighborhoods. So transportation manager is a little on the fence as to what this is. But regardless, the handbook does specifically call out at the time of design of this area Los Altos as a collector street requiring this type of fencing. So all existing residential fencing along the south side of Los Altos Parkway is consistent with that illustration and the text description for materials, design, and height, except for one property, which is this property. So the standard provides a consistent design aesthetic, identifying the planned development as a cohesive neighborhood, and provides for the health, safety, and privacy of all residents in that neighborhood. As you can see from this photo that was provided by the applicant and taken from the perspective of Los Altos Parkway, the fence addition is extended beyond the height of the allowed fence. This fence came to the attention of the city through a complaint to the Code Enforcement Division and has been through the code enforcement process. The fence the applicant is proposing was already constructed without benefit of a building permit. Most recently, the case was heard at an administrative hearing where the hearing officer gave the applicant extra time to exhaust their due process and submit an application for a major deviation. In the next slide, I'll show a video of the entire fencing along the south side of Los Altos. There's only one property with the fencing that's not in conformance. So, that has a fence that's not in conformance with, it's theirs, yeah. On the south side of Los Altos. So as you can see here, all of this residential fencing is consistent in height, in design, in type of wood, and with the pillars every so often, or pilasters every so often. And then we have our commercial area that breaks up that residential fencing, and it picks up again. And there's their fence right there.
How recent is this?
Video was last Sunday. So we can see there's been some repair and replacement of individual panels by the homeowners to take care of these fences that were constructed in 1999. So they are aging. There's a replacement right there. The city does allow replacement of up to 3 panels without a permit. Replacement. Okay. So that's it. Oh, no, okay. So this I actually took today. These photos show the fence materials and height visible from that north side of the property. This is me, and with my shoes, I'm 5'5". So this shows the top of the 6-foot fence right here with the cap that actually adds a couple of inches to it. And this shows their extension. This is stepped back a few feet so you can see it. And this is from the neighbor's property, and this shows the view from their property of this fence. Doesn't meet the KRS design and material standard, and it's obviously an anomaly in the entire neighborhood. This is another photo the applicant provided showing the inside view. It's a very nice fence that they've constructed. It's very attractive. He's showing that the top of the outside fence is here. It's actually not. It's about up here. But if you notice, he's also standing on a deck. I don't know what the height of that deck is. But the addition of the deck did serve to diminish their practical height of that fence and increase their ability to view traffic or have others view them as they're walking about. So this is an exhibit from the handbook showing the illustration and dimensions with detailed description of that required fencing at this location. It's labeled as Exhibit 5 in your packets. And you see the pilasters that you saw in that video, and the cap, and the 6-foot fence. As it says in the bottom, 6-foot fence with pilaster, collector street fencing. So I've completed the background and analysis portion of my presentation, and now I'm going to move into the findings. There's only 5, so that's good. So finding MD1 requires consistency with regulations. There's no measurable dimensions or characteristics of this lot that are different than on any of the other 16 adjacent and nearby lots that would justify increasing that fence height on such a visually impactful location along the south side of Los Altos. While the applicant's request is primarily in conformance with stated purpose of Title 20 of the Sparks Municipal Code, in that the proposed fencing, for example, has no impact on air and water resources or transportation and public facilities, allowing the requested deviation for fence height would be an anomaly and an obvious interruption to the existing consistency in fence design along the street frontage. Finding MD2 requires the major deviation not be materially detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to property or improvements in the vicinity. While the request will likely have no impact on public health or safety, approval of this request may have an injurious impact on neighboring properties because such a deviation would have a detrimental effect on the aesthetic consistency of that perimeter fencing. Deviation from this development standard for Collector Street residential design for a property that does not differ from adjacent properties in any measurable development standard is not a reasonable request based on the aesthetic impact to the neighborhood and the adjacent properties. Finding MD3 is concerned with ensuring the major deviation provides the same property rights as others in the vicinity, and that would be denied if the major deviation was not granted. As previously stated, there are no measurable dimensions or characteristics of this lot that are materially different than any of the adjacent nearby lots that would justify increasing their fence height. So denial of this request would maintain the required and uniformly applied 6 feet allowed height and the design standard as permitted in the handbook. Finding MD4 ensures the request does not constitute a special privilege. The deviation process is available to the whole of the public within the Kylie Ranch South Plan development and within the city of Sparks generally, and would not represent a special privilege to a single property owner. However, given that there are no measurable standards or characteristics that would prevent the applicants from enjoying their property to the same extent as other property owners, approval of this request would be a special privilege to the detriment of the surrounding neighborhood aesthetics. And finally, finding MD5 requires a public hearing be noticed appropriately. So public notice was published in the Reno Gazette Journal and mailed to 78 property owners within 500 feet of the subject property on September 6th. The Planning Commission meeting functions as the public hearing for this item as required by Nevada revised statutes and the Sparks Municipal Code. At the time of the writing of this report, the city has received 1 public comment on this item. The applicant did provide 1 letter of support from neighbors in their plan review meeting. That letter was provided to you on the dais this evening. So after thorough review and analysis of the application, staff is unable to make findings 1 through 4, is therefore recommending the Planning Commission deny this application. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have, and I've included staff's recommended motion for your consideration.
Thank you, Danny. I think that's the wrong slide, just FYI.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, we'll go back.
Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Now is your turn.
May I speak from you?
You may.
My name is John Zach.
Actually, you need to come up here, sir. And if your wife would like to come up, she may come up as well.
My name is John Zenz. I'm the applicant. Danny just made a couple incorrect statements. We had 2 letters that were submitted that were in agreement with us, and they were both of our adjacent neighbors. One of our adjacent neighbors is here this evening. They don't have a problem with it. The other thing is the lot size. The 3 lots, the ones adjacent to us are approximately 6,000 square feet. The lots to the west of us are
11,500, 8,500, 7,000 something, I can't
Can you
remember.
state your name, ma'am?
Oh, Michelle, I'm Michelle Zenz.
Thank you.
but the lots are to the larger and have more. Our home is a little larger, and our
Lots.
back of our building sits closer to the roadway than even the 2 adjacent lots. So we have less of a backyard.
The way
And-
our house plans, we have the second smallest lot in the whole, at least of the sheet that shows it.
Do you have a document you want to show it?
Oh. Well, I think it was,
But
it's from the development.
also, she said about her little video of the on the south side, there's 2 fences just on the north
And I've got
side
all the pictures
that
of
are
the
extending above the regular
a foot and a
fence.
half to 2 feet. difference on the north side, right across from our backyards.
My biggest thing is, when it was originally planned and done, when we moved in, it was 1999, I think, or 2000. There was no traffic. Los Altos did not go all the way through. And the planning and the planning commission at that time didn't take into consideration all of the developments in the future. And there's a horrible traffic thing there, and it should be a major arterial roadway. And we should have some relief, from the traffic. I just did like a minute video this afternoon of all the cars zipping by. You want to put a photo? Oh, that's just
Well-
one of the other.
These are just photos of the fence. I had to take 4 pictures because it's expansion of 2 houses, 2 backyards, that they actually added 1.5 feet on their fence directly on our other side of our,
There's other fences that
and then there's
extend above.
one just a half a block down.
But,
You can see it from our house that they did about a 2
I'm,
foot.
I'm not sure how special a privilege this would be, compared to the other fencings we see throughout the city of Sparks. And it's just providing us a little bit of a privacy on our own lot. And the cost for us to, the fines that we already paid to even have this meeting with you, we feel is plenty penalty enough for us not doing it in the first place. I'm not sure who complained or why, because we don't feel like we're infringing upon anybody else's rights, or their property rights, or their view, and both of our adjacent neighbors agree to that.
Well, and another thing, like I think I said on the Monday, on our house is 1.5 feet above the ground. Where the deck is that we were standing on, that's level with us walking right out of our kitchen. We didn't raise it. We made it level so that we used to have to go 1.5 feet, 2 big steps down to our yard. And if you went down there, then the fence was high enough. But I'm standing in my kitchen, and I can see the lady doing dishes across the highway, the Los Altos, in her kitchen. They were the neighbors that added that extra. She probably got tired of looking at me doing my dishes, and so they must have done that. But when we put the deck on, we just made it, we're retired. We don't want to have to keep stepping down to 2 big, huge feet to get down. My dog wasn't old, so we put a deck level right when you walk out. So when you're standing in the kitchen, we could see cars before we built our fence, with the fence that was there. I see people, developers, they put a berm around and they build the fence up just a little bit. And so it's above, and you don't drive by and see into their kitchens, into their bedrooms. Our bedroom and our kitchen both face Los Altos. We never have ever had our curtains or blinds open in our bedroom or our kitchen or the family room, because they both face that, because I've always been able to see the neighbors and the traffic until we put this fence up. And so someone said it was for the flood, but if you look at some of our other houses, they're back further, or they're lower. I don't know if they didn't level the ground well. I didn't know how to do the elevation. I did it like with my phone, but it's not that accurate. So from the bottom of the fence.
On the opposite side of the street, if you look at it, from the sidewalk, they actually built a berm up to the fence. So the fence is actually started 1 foot or 2 higher than the street level. And so then the fence is even taller on their side. And ours is just
Yeah,
level
it's
with
just
the
level.
sidewalk. So the fence is lower on our side than it is on just the north side of the street, just because the way the builder built it. I'm just thinking that the planning in the original 1999, the builder and developer, with the amount of traffic and the flow and the things that were to come, it should be a major arterial roadway. And we do have letters from both
Yeah, well,
our adjacent neighbors that,
We got more letters from the same people that sent the initial letters when when we first had to submit paperwork. And that one is from our neighbor on the west. He couldn't make it, but he was trying to sell his house 3 years ago, and it never sold. Noise complaints. And then I actually have the activity report from our neighbors on the east. They don't live there, they rent it now. Well, they tried to sell it earlier this year, And they had 20 complaints, all saying, beautiful home, loved what you did, but noisy, busy. I highlight all the red marks that they said, and I would like to add that. And so I feel like
They weren't
the
able to
property
sell.
values, if everybody said, oh, you gotta come lower if you want to sell your house on this noisy street. So if this house was someplace else, a block in, we could be losing $100,000 in value because of the noise on the street and the traffic. And so it's noisy traffic, and for us, because our house is higher, it's privacy too. I mean, you can see the people go by. I used to be able to see it all the time. And, you know, it's just, I mean, I don't know if anybody has that type of thing to live, that you can't walk out on your deck and take your dog to the bathroom in your pajamas because the fence is too low, you have to go get dressed, you can't just, you know, run out to your backyard with, you know, not looking presentable because everybody can see you from the road. And, I mean, I've seen the passengers drive by, especially the big trucks going by, you know, you can see, I'm sorry.
She
I'm
talks too
Italian.
much.
No. I'm Italian. But, and emotional, because it's heartbreaking to think that our yard is so narrow that, yes, we could have added more trees. We do have trees. But to do that, all we would is have trees, and there would have been no yard. And, you know, I don't know what else to say.
We just don't feel like we're asking for a big privilege.
And I think
Just for
most people.
privacy in our own home and our home's value.
I think most
We're not
people-
infringing upon our neighbors or anyone else.
I think most of our neighbors, if they knew that these people had a hard time selling their house and that their value of their house is gonna go down $100,000 because of the street noise and the traffic, I think we would have had more people coming. And unfortunately, my husband had a hunt, we've been out of town, we didn't even get our mail with a notice. We knew the date, but until yesterday, they were holding our mail. And so we were out of state, and I really wanted to knock on our doors of our neighbors to let them know what the value of their house is going to be if they are going to try to sell it, and or maybe not even be able to sell it, because even in the house crisis this past year, they weren't able to sell their house, so they're back to renting it. So there's, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Being as this is a public hearing, we're going to open it for public comment. Does anybody wish to make public comment on this item at this time? Yes, ma'am. Can you come up here and state your name, please? And then when you're done, can you please fill out a request to speak card with our board secretary?
My name is Sunita Grewal, and we moved into that house in 1999. My kids were young. Now they are 21 and 24. And we left that house, I think, 16 years ago. So when we purchased the house, it was an ideal house, beautiful, everything was fantastic. In fact, I could also put in a sandbox in there. Safe for my kids to be out there playing in their sandbox. But after we left from there, we had to move out from there and move towards Wingfield Springs. After that, we rented that space out. And we did get some complaints about the noise, but they were willing to work with us. And it was fine. But today, what I'm seeing, I'm not able to sell my house. I am not, the sound or the noise is so much that they were not able to be comfortable. One of my renter, they were sick, and she constantly complained that my husband is a cancer patient and I'm not able to even give him a restful time. Secondly, she had grandkids visiting her, and her concern was that the backing is so close to the road, and it's also becoming a danger. It's a hazardous because people are now not mindful like the way they were 24 years ago driving. We have some really road rage people driving. And those fence over there, they are not protecting anybody. It is just something right in front, but not protective at all. So that's my other concern. We had to take off our house off the market. And now we had a renter for 1 year and they had the same complaints. So now we're looking for another renter. So that's also hitting our pockets. But most importantly, if I'm renting out my house to somebody, I want to see them safe. I want to see their grandkids, their children safe. So along with the noise hazard, it's also become a safety issue now. So aesthetically, we all want to look good. Aesthetically, we want to make our neighborhood look good. But how important is safety? We have got human beings encroaching the land. So now we have all the coyotes and all walking by our streets while we are driving in daylight. Those fences, they're so low that these coyotes are able to jump over. And like I said, I live in Wingfield areas. I've seen those things happening. But I've also heard my neighbors saying that the same thing happened in her area. And that is the main city. That road is really, really, there's no speed limit. I mean, there is a speed limit, there's a radar warning, but I don't think anybody cares much about it. So while you guys decide on aesthetic, please keep safety also in mind. And if the city can help, maybe build a wall, both the problems can be solved. I think Spark City is pretty, having some money to contribute towards their families' homes over there. That's the only thing I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public, anybody else wishing to make public comment at this time? Yes, ma'am.
It's so funny, we wrote, again, this is Michelle Sens. When, in the very beginning, when we wrote a lot of our stuff to the city, explaining why we built the fence, when she was talking about the coyotes, and I don't know how much, if you've read every word that was ever sent in our paperwork, but that was our initial thing, is my neighbor to the west, she no longer lives there, but we have a new neighbor now, but a coyote went over the fence, went into her dog door and killed her dog. She came home. She was a sheriff, Washoe County Sheriff volunteer. She went up and down all the neighborhood and told everybody. And she had white carpet. She was cleaning blood, all over her carpet. She had two elderly dogs. One did not get attacked, but she thinks it was because it was in another room, and Def didn't even know the other one was being killed. Approximately shortly after that, 2 doors down from her, the lady and her son, 9-year-old son, and she was pregnant, sat 9 o'clock on the Sunday morning and watched the coyote come over her fence. And they both are the same, butt up to Los Altos, grab her. She had a mother Yorkie with a baby, grabbed the baby Yorkie, took it back over the thing. She's screaming, this 9-year-old screaming. She calls the city or the animal control. They're like, okay, we'll come out, but they figured it was too late. Fortunately, this might be the only time that there's traffic. People Sunday morning were on the road and they saw the coyote carrying the puppy, and they started honking and chasing after it, and it actually ran into a field. And it was ironic that the animal control came up at that intersection and saw the coyote, dropped the puppy. They went and retrieved the puppy. The puppy lived, and they brought the puppy back to our neighbor lady. And the next day when we drove by, they had gone out and bought the picket fencing that you buy, like already assembled, the strip of it. white and attached it to that whole fence. And it went, and they had one of the bigger lots, because they were on one of the, went like this. And all the way up Los Altos, you saw this white picket fence and you were like going, but I don't think anybody's gonna mess with her because of what just happened. Probably about a year later, she did paint it brown. And then I believe a year later, she sold it. So we saw all this long before we ever built our fence, but we heard about it. We put nails, finished nails, all along our fence, because I have a dog, and when we were working, he was by himself. I figured if the coyotes came over, they'd be, their paws would be ripped. We tried all kinds of stuff, had talk radio on 24/7, and we never had any attack. There's a new owner in that house, and I don't know how long they took, but maybe within a year, they finally took that fence down. So I don't remember I kept looking, why won't we have a picture of that? That was like extremely obnoxious looking white, especially when it was white picket fence, just tacked right along the top of the development fence. And so there are,
I told you she could talk.
no.
That's all right. Thank you, Michelle. All right. Anybody else wishing to make public comment? All right. Do we have questions for Danny? Sure.
Yes, I have a request to speak.
Yes, ma'am.
Ricky Rodriguez-Elkins. So a couple of questions, Danny. Now that the road is classified as arterial, do we have a timeline for constructing a more permanent barrier, higher barrier to protect the residents from the noise?
From what I understand from my conversation with Amber Sosa, the transportation manager, is that would only occur if the street were widened. If RTC were to widen that street, most likely they would reach out to the homeowners and have a plan for creating a block wall barrier, perhaps even a taller one. But that's the only eventuality.
Okay, which means them losing property line.
Well, no, that's the public, where the outside sidewalk is.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah,
sidewalk would be.
sidewalk and common area landscaping and all that, that would be encroached upon.
Okay, all right, and then, and so if they're denied, will the other fences that are across the road, will compliance go and enforce those issues?
Only if there's a complaint.
So
Our
even
code
though-
enforcement is complaint-driven. We do not go out to sites proactively.
Okay, even though we know that there's an issue. Okay, and my understanding was they did not have a permit.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I guess I'm gonna put my 2 cents worth in on this one. As a homeowner, your responsibility is to, when you buy that home, you are given the CCNRs in the handbook within the city of Sparks. And you know what the requirements are. I'm going to assume that you are original owners of the home. I empathize with you. Building a deck that is 1.5 feet higher than your backyard has put you in a predicament because you put a fence on top of that deck. The pictures that I saw,
The deck is, fence is on the ground level.
okay, you still have a deck that is 1.5 feet higher because you didn't want to walk out the 2 steps down to the lot. And I understand that. I can appreciate that. The information that you provided for staff that that we all received Monday evening, Tuesday morning, shows any number of fences throughout the city of Sparks. Not everybody has the same handbook. And it's very apparent, we've known that for quite a few years. Different neighborhoods constructed at different times have different requirements. It's just what the developer in the city came up with at that time. But building this without permission 6 years ago and not having a permit and not coming to the planning commission then, there were other things that you could have done to alleviate, in my opinion, to alleviate the unsightliness of that fence. And I've driven by it 3 times, and I live in that area, and I drive by that all the time, and now I see that fence. And all of a sudden, everything's the same, and then it's not. But there are other properties on that roadway that have shrubbery and bushes and trees that are there. 6 years ago, those could have been planted. They could be big by now. And yes, you would have had to have waited. I understand that. The fact that it's a fence and it's 1 foot 4 inches higher than anything else. Apparently, don't know who didn't like it, but somebody didn't like it. And it's unfortunate that you guys got called on the carpet on that. We issue permits in the city for a reason. And the reason is to keep people from making mistakes, which you have done. And it's costly to you. This could have been avoided. I have to agree, if we grant a major deviation for this, how many other times are people going to be here wanting to have something else just like that in their yard? What's them to prevent them from putting up an 8-foot fence or a 10-foot fence or a full enclosure in their yard without having permission to do it? This isn't a minor thing, and it's been said it's a major thing, and that's kind of my 2 cents on this one. I cannot support granting a major deviation for this. I'm so sorry for that. But there's a reason why we have building codes in this area. There's reasons why we have HOAs. There's reasons why we have LMAs. Concerns about the traffic should be addressed to the police department and RTC. Those are the ones that are going to be able to give you the most impact and be able to be preventable. I moved in that area before Los Altos was all the way through to Pyramid. I understand that. I use that street every single day if I have to. If I don't have to, I don't. I use DISC. But like I said, there's a reason we have building codes, and it is for conformance. And I understand that it's not fair, but it's how the system needs to work in order to make us have what we have in a community that isn't running around rampant doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, sure.
We did add lattice, or not lattice, what's a silver lace? What's the other vines? We did that when we first moved there. And when the noise started to come up, and it was huge probably even almost as high as what our fence is. We had rats. We had mice, rats. And that's such a small little area, it actually infringed on the size of our lot. And then we decided, we pulled all of our lawn out, front and back, we went xeriscape. We figured, you know, we didn't want to be paying the lawn guy and the water, so we did all this to kind of make it low maintenance, you know. And we looked at, when the noise started coming, we even looked at, should we move? But we already thought, you know what, I don't think we're having a hard time even selling this place. Let's just make it, we're retiring, and let's make it our little thing. You said you now noticed this fence, but you haven't noticed it for 6 years driving by.
No, I've noticed it,
And, well, and I have.
and I've noticed all the other fences.
And all the other fence. Well, so you saw the picket fence then years ago? Yeah, okay, yeah. And so we always kept seeing it, and we never, when we built ours inside in the property line. We didn't touch the fence. I guess in my mind's eye, we weren't touching what was there. We went into
Understood.
our property line and we built something that, you know, and our deck went up to it, that we weren't needing and that's our fault. I watch a lot of fixer-upper shows and they were doing privacy walls. So, yeah, who knows what state they were in.
Understood.
And gave me the idea. When we saw the picket fence, we thought, well, that was there for 3 years, and, you know, so I guess, you know, and then like the other fences we showed you Monday or sent to you were around Sparks. Some of them are hideous. The one that they built, and they built a roof, and then they put picket fence 6 feet above that. It looks like it's at 10 feet. And so I'm pretty sure that was not in the builder's manual on that division. But,
Understood.
yeah.
But
And-
the
But nobody
fact-
complained
But the
about
fact
it.
of the matter is, if you were to construct a fence that exceeded your fence line, or construct a gazebo that exceeded your fence line, you still have to have a permit in order to do that. And you have to work with the city in
That
the
part,
confines
we did not.
of what the code says. And that is what you did not do.
No, I agree, we did not. We figured because we were inside our property line.
Does it,
that-
unfortunately, that does not matter. I want to build a gazebo in my backyard and I can't because I don't have the right setbacks. So I can't do that. So I know enough to go to the city and say, hey, can I do this? And they're going, well, you need this, this, and this.
Is it worth it to spend?
Is it worth it? I get it. Do we have any further deliberation of the commissioners before we vote on this? All right. Anything else I need to be aware of? Okay.
I see you looking directly at me.
I am. I want to make sure that I'm
Well, the one thing I
legal
would say
here.
is we don't recommend denial very often. So the recommended
Do not.
motion is open-ended. I would just recommend that if it is a motion for denial, that you specify which findings cannot be made and why.
All right. Can I get a motion? If there's no other discussion. Oh, good Lord. Yes, sir?
Just curious, you personally said you noticed the fence. Did you notice it before we put in our petition? Did you notice it previous? to-
Yes, I've noticed it. I have noticed it.
I didn't hear the answer.
Yes, sir. All right. Who's willing to make that motion? You gotta come up with the findings too, guys. According to Brandon, we gotta have the findings. So now we have to look. Okay, so,
Can you bring back up the findings?
findings.
I think it's 3 and 4.
Two's about like detriment to other property value.
Detriment is granting major deviation. Safety, injures to property or improvements in the vicinity.
Is that one relevant? Feels like it's
It's weird. Okay, so. Three definitely. Three. What the hell? It went away. Damn it.
Oh, wait. Okay. Approve to deny, right?
But you gotta approve it,
I did.
and then you gotta say what findings it did not meet.
Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If one of the commissioners chooses to make a motion, would ask that they read it out loud.
Yes.
Then we will be able to craft the motion up on the board.
Absolutely.
And then we can put it up there for a second. But
Perfect.
because there is no predetermined motion at this time due to the recommendation of denial and staff not being able to identify the findings necessarily for the commission, we couldn't do a predetermined motion this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins. It's on you.
I move to deny the major deviation MAJ 23-0001 associated with PCN 05100 to increase the maximum fence height from 6 feet to 7 feet 4 inches on a 6,127 square foot site located at 1186 Glendora Lane, Sparks, Nevada, because I cannot make the required findings, and the findings were, should I read all these? Okay. Findings were MD1, the request is inconsistent with regulations. Finding 2, MD2, granting the major deviation will not be material detrimental.
Chair.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
that's
Brandon.
right. Okay.
Brandon.
As soon as I read it, I know that was weird. Sorry.
I believe what is typical, Commissioner Ricky Elkins, is that you personally would identify
One of these.
which of those findings, those are the required findings, which of those you cannot materially make and why.
Okay, thank you.
So for example,
Okay,
you
so
could
what?
say
Right.
MD,
MD1.
whichever
I have
number
it now.
because of,
Right. Okay.
whatever
So,
reasons.
should I read the whole thing over again?
you can start with findings.
Okay, I cannot make the required findings because MD1, the request is not consistent with regulations when a permit was not requested and provided. Cannot be made, and I state the reasons, as set forth in the staff report as follows. Sorry, I am like new to the commission, so what is the as follows part?
Chair,
Oh, the
Go
as
ahead.
follows should be in there.
through the chair,
Okay.
Commissioner Elkins.
Yes, sir.
You read the finding and then you identified because of a building permit.
Yes, sir.
If you did it exactly as that said, I think you've done it okay.
Okay.
If you did it as it said, you would have said, cannot make finding MD1 for the reasons as follows. Then you would have said your
Okay.
rationale.
All right, thank you.
So your motion is as presented because of finding MD1.
Thank you.
Is that all? Just the one?
Yes, sir. I think that's the main.
Okay. And second by,
Second.
thank you. All right. Go to a vote here. Any other comments, questions, or comments from commissioners? Before we vote? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Chair, would you consider a 5-minute recess?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We are recessed for 5 minutes. Because the motion was inadequate at the time of stating, I would like to have a motion to remove the original motion, and second that, please.
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Nieberland, I'd like to move that we reject that motion and remove it.
May I get a second, please?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I think, because we already had a motion, I think we need to take action on that first motion. So if everybody votes to reject the first motion, then there's no action. So let's vote on the original motion. If you want to reject that, then vote to reject it, and then a new motion can be made.
So is that what we just did?
I thought there was a motion.
No, we moved
to-
We moved to reject the motion,
The original motion.
the original motion. Are we good?
Carry on.
Okay, thank you. All right, okay, now. Can I get a motion?
How about if I do a motion?
Absolutely, Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins, go ahead.
So I move to Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins, I move to deny the major deviation MAJ 23-0001 associated with PCN 05100 to increase the maximum fence height from 6 feet to 7 feet 4 inches on a 6,127 square foot site located at 1186 Glendora Lane, Sparks, Nevada, because I cannot make the required findings. MD1 as set forth, now it's different. MD1 as set forth in the staff report.
Second.
No,
No,
No.
there's,
No.
where are the rest of them?
back it up.
Oh, are you asking for them?
Well, they're not, I don't have them.
This Commissioner Richie Elkins, this is your motion, so we don't know what your motion's going to be. We don't have anything.
I can't see the other findings.
That's on the from the presentation you're asking for.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I cannot make the required findings. MD1, MD2, MD3, MD4, as set forth in this motion.
Because
And your rationale, Commissioner.
rationale.
Because the applicants did not obtain a permit, and also the aesthetic value of the fence that they have put in does not match the rest of the neighborhood. Period.
Are we good, sir? Are we good?
Okay, now I second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Okay. All right. Can I add to that motion? An explanation?
Well, we have a second on it.
Okay.
We need to take it similar to the
No, never mind, we're not gonna do that then. Never
Chair,
mind.
I
Yes,
think
sir.
it's okay.
All right.
The motion's been seconded and it's open for discussion. You could now identify what concerns you have with the 5 findings.
Thank you, Mr. Rundle. I agree with Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins on this. 1, 2, 3, and 4. As for no permit, the aesthetic value, and I do believe that if we were, by not granting it, it would be a special circumstance that is not necessary. I mean, nobody else gets that special circumstance, so there is, we can't, it would set building codes back years if we were to do this. That's,
I like to put something on
Go
the
for
record too. I completely agree with Chair Kramer's comments and with the motion. And also, this seems just like a very obvious case of asking for forgiveness and not asking for permission. And as Chair said earlier, there are rules for a reason, and I think that we need to make sure that the rules are enforced, even if the circumstances may be unfortunate.
okay. Anybody else have any other comments?
Chair?
Yes,
with-
sir.
With the non-typical recommendation of denial at Planning Commission, I think it would be good for the record for Commissioner Rossen and Eberline to also identify their sentiment.
You guys get to talk too. Go ahead.
Sorry.
All right.
Go ahead,
I
Commissioner
agree
Rossen.
with Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins, that it didn't meet the aesthetics, that's MD2. And then MD3, it didn't meet with the, it didn't even look like the other fence. So the material used was wrong. And then the big thing is not getting the permit and going through the proper channels to make this work.
Commissioner Nieberline, for the record, I also support Chairwoman Kramer's position on this. I think that in addition to the previously stated issues regarding building permits and the aesthetic value of what it does, additionally, all the neighbors are subject to the exact same regulations, and it does provide a unique value to this one landowner or property owner in that area. And so I believe that was MD4. So for those reasons, I support this measure.
Okay. I think we're ready to cast our votes.
Not already, but like 20 minutes ago.
Okay, well, you might have. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you so much, Danny. We appreciate your diligence on this. And thank you, Mr. Rundle and Mr. Sendall, for your diligence on making sure we got it right. Okay. Moving on. Oh, my goodness. PCN 23-0011/MPA 23-0005. Good evening, Sienna.
Good evening. A lot of items were closed out, Madam Chair, so hold on just a
Oh,
minute.
no worries.
Let me get a presentation up. All right. So, thank you, Chair Kramer, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, Sienna Reed, Planning Manager. This agenda item before you tonight is a comprehensive plan amendment request for a 5.77 acre site located at 1275 East Prater Way. On this slide, you can see the amendment site bound in red. It's a vacant parcel located at the southeast corner of Prater Way and Marina Gateway. And again, it totals 5.77 acres. Notably, the Sparks Comprehensive Plan designates Prater Way as one of the city's primary investment corridors, meaning that is a location where both public and private investment is prioritized. In addition, the Sparks Comprehensive Plan designates the intersection of East Prater Way and Marina Gateway Drive as a minor activity center. Minor activities centers are designated areas where the city is looking for a concentration of activity that supports a pedestrian-oriented pattern of development, as well as supports transit service. Today, the subject site is designated Mixed Use District, Mixed Residential, or MUD-MR. You can see that designation illustrated in the yellow with red hatching. The current MUD-MR Comprehensive Plan land use designation is intended to provide opportunities for mixed-use development with a residential emphasis. That said, in conjunction with the city's zoning code, this designation supports both residential as well as non-residential uses. Residential uses permitted include townhomes, duplexes, apartments, condominiums, and in terms of supporting non-residential uses, offices, personal services, restaurants, grocery stores, and convenience stores are all permitted. There are a few non-residential uses that would require a conditional use permit to establish, such as retail, childcare facilities, event centers or banquet halls, medical offices, and bars. As proposed, the comprehensive plan amendment before you tonight would change the land use designation on the subject site to mixed-use district, mixed-use commercial, or MUD-MUC. That's the designation shown in pink. As you can see on the map overhead, properties to the east of the site are already designated MUD-MUC, and this designation supports a wider range of not only residential, commercial, but also recreational, institutional, and lodging uses when compared to the current MUD-MR designation. When you take a look at the city zoning code standards that are used in conjunction with this designation, the proposed MUD-MUC land use designation supports, again, various residential uses, townhomes, apartments, condominiums. And then on the non-residential side of things, various commercial, lodging, recreational, and institutional uses are permitted. Those include uses like retails, event centers, medical offices, bars, entertainment facilities, cultural institutions, and hotels or motels that are less than 20 units. However, there are other intense or auto-oriented uses that do require a conditional use permit under the MUD-MUC land use designation. These are uses like a hotel or motel that's greater than 20 units, auto and truck repair, car wash, medical office greater than 50,000 square feet, non-restricted gaming, as well as a minor recreation facility. And that CUP process does ensure the impacts associated with the proposed use are considered in a public hearing by the Sparks Planning Commission and appropriately mitigated with conditions of approval. So with this slide, we'll go ahead and shift gears into the required findings that the Planning Commission needs to consider tonight. Starting off with finding CP1, which requires the proposed comprehensive plan amendment conform with the regional plan land use intensity designation. The site before you tonight has a mixed-use core land designation per the regional plan. Properties in the mixed-use core are characterized by urban development that have the highest density and intensity requirements. That's to have development that supports a pedestrian-friendly atmosphere as well as transit service. And so to that end, the regional plan does require a minimum residential density of 14 dwelling units per acre and a minimum non-residential intensity in terms of a floor area ratio of 0.25. Because this site is located adjacent to a primary investment corridor, the proposed MUD-MUC land use designation would need to have a minimum residential density of 24 dwelling units per acre, and then the minimum FAR is 0.25 for non-residential development. So those requirements are above what's required in the regional plan, and the request does conform to the regional plan requirements. Moving on to finding CP2, this finding requires the proposed amendment implement the goals and policies of our comprehensive plan. So as proposed, changing the land use designation to MUD-MUC would allow for a broader range of non-residential uses and associated businesses to establish along Prater Way, which is again a primary investment corridor and also within a minor activity center. This supports goals MG6, MG7, policy MG11. Those encourage compact and fiscally responsible growth patterns. The request also supports policies MG12 and C7 that promote infill in the city's mixed-use district. And then also in support of policy CF1, city services can be provided at acceptable service levels with development of the site. Looking at the next finding, CP3, that focuses on compatibility with surrounding land uses. As proposed, it's staff's opinion that the comprehensive plan land use designation on the subject site would conform with the surrounding land use designations. As already mentioned earlier, properties to the east are designated MUD, MUC currently. They're developed with commercial and office uses. Then properties to the south and west are designated MUD, MR. They are developed with multifamily buildings as well as a gas station and convenience store. Properties to the north are designated IDR, or intermediate density residential, and developed with single-family uses. The MUD, MUC land use designation actually already abuts those single-family uses on the east and south sides, and redesignating the subject site to MUD, MUC would reflect that existing pattern of land use where the MUD, MUC designation, is located adjacent to the IDR land use. In addition, Prater Way also serves as an 80-foot buffer between the site and the single-family homes. And just to reiterate, if the proposed land use designation change is approved, there would also still be a CUP process to evaluate the more intense or auto-oriented uses in the future. And lastly, finding CP4 requires public notice be given as required by code and state law. The statutorily required neighborhood meeting for this comprehensive plan amendment was conducted by the applicant on August 17th, and 2 members of the public attended that meeting. The discussion focused on water rights, a preference for residential development as opposed to commercial, and a need for affordable senior housing. In addition, public notice was published in the Reno Gazette-Journal on September 6th. And to date, staff has not received any phone calls or written correspondence on this item. So with that, I will note that staff is recommending the Planning Commission approve the comprehensive plan amendment request. You have a suggested motion on this slide as well as in your packet. And with that, I will wrap up this presentation and be available for any questions you have.
Thank you, Sienna. Any questions for Sienna?
I have a quick question, Madam Chair. Sienna, do you know how long this has been vacant? Because I know it's at least 32 years because I'm 32 and there has never been anything there.
There were cows there. There used to be a farm there.
Through you, Chair Kramer, I do not know the exact amount of time that this property has been vacant, but it is certainly a vacant infill site.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Sienna? Is the applicant here?
At least 32 years.
How does it turn on? Oh, push. There you go. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Chair Kramer, Stacey Huggins with Wood Rogers representing the applicant. Did you have any specific questions for me?
Anybody have any questions for Stacey? Okay. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, staff did a great job summarizing our request. We're excited to get the change in land use approved and potentially come in with a project on that piece of property.
Perfect. All right, since this is a public hearing, I will open the public hearing for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the board. I think, are we ready for a motion? I think we're ready for a motion. Commissioner Nieberline.
Madam Chairwoman, Commissioner Nieberline for the record. I move to adopt resolution number 238 adopting the comprehensive plan use management or planned land use amendment, MPA 23-0005, associated with PCN 23-0011, amending the comprehensive planned land use designation for a 5.77 acre site located at 1275 East Prater Way, assessor parcel number 037-020-38, from mixed-use district mixed residential to mixed-use district mixed-use commercial, based on findings CP1 through CP4 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report.
Commissioner? Just a second.
A second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Nieberline and a second by Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins. Any further discussion of this item? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, cast your vote. All right. Motion passes. Thank you.
I figured it was just zoned for sagebrush and tumbleweed storage.
It was cows at one time. Moving on, PCN 04074/MPA 23-0006. And Sienna, you're up again.
Thank you, Chair Kramer. Again, for the record, Sienna Reed, Planning Manager, presenting this item, which is another comprehensive plan amendment request. This one is for an 8.7 acre site located at 3755 Moore Park Court. On this slide, you can see the vicinity map with the amendment site bound in red. It consists of 3 vacant parcels that are generally located both south and west of El Rancho Drive, given the curve in El Rancho Drive, and also south of Moore Park Court, which is actually this street right here. Oops. Together, the 3 parcels total 8.75 acres. Currently, the subject site is designated intermediate density residential, or IDR, which you can see in the tan color. That current IDR comprehensive plan land use designation supports detached single-family uses at a range in terms of density between 6 and 10 dwelling units per acre. This designation does not conform with the existing El Rancho Estates Design Standards Handbook that was approved in 2006 because that handbook permits attached townhomes. So as proposed, the comprehensive plan amendment request would change the land use designation on the subject site to multifamily residential, or MF14, which you can see in the light blue-green color. That proposed MF14 land use designation would be more compatible with the existing El Rancho Estates Plan Development Handbook because it supports a range of residential uses, not only detached single-family residences, but also attached single-family, duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, and apartments. And it specifies a density range between 10 and 14 dwelling units per acre. So looking at the required findings for tonight, we'll start off, just as we did last item, with finding CP1 that requires the proposed request conform with the regional plan land use intensity designation. Per the regional plan, the subject site has a Tier 2 land designation. Properties in Tier 2 are characterized by suburban development, and residential density is limited to 30 dwelling units per acre. So with that maximum density of 14 dwelling units per acre, the proposed MF14 designation does comply with the regional plan land designation density requirements. Looking at finding CP2 that requires the comprehensive plan amendment implement the goals and policies of the Sparks Comprehensive Plan. As proposed, changing the land use designation to MF14 would support what we commonly know as missing middle housing products. Those are townhomes, duplexes, and low-density apartments, as well as high-density single-family homes. These housing types offer alternatives to traditional detached single-family homes, encouraging housing diversity, not only in support of Goal H2, but also in support of Policy H2. As proposed, the comprehensive plan amendment would also increase allowable density on the site, and that change would promote a more compact form of development, advancing Goal MG6 as well as Policy MG11. Also, slopes of 30% or greater are present on the subject site. Such slopes are included in the development constraints area per the Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. And so in compliance with Policy RC22 of our comprehensive plan, the standards of either the Sparks Municipal Code or the El Rancho Estates Plan Development Handbook will regulate development consistent with restrictions that are placed on the DCA. And, and lastly, in support of policy CF1, city services can be provided at acceptable service levels with development of the site. Moving on to finding CP3, again focusing on compatibility with surrounding land uses. Changing the comprehensive plan land use designation on the subject site, in staff's opinion, is compatible with the surrounding land use designations. The property to the west of the site is designated high-density residential and developed with a multifamily apartment complex. Properties to the north are designated IDR pursuant to the Sparks Comprehensive Plan land use map, and then suburban residential pursuant to Washoe County's master plan, given that we do have two jurisdictions abutting each other. Those properties to the north, regardless of their designation, are developed with single-family dwellings. Properties to the south are designated IDR and open space pursuant to the Sparks Comprehensive Plan and developed with single-family dwellings. And then properties to the east are designated open space pursuant to the Sparks Comprehensive Plan land use map and suburban residential pursuant to the Washoe County Master Plan. These properties to the east contain undeveloped open space and a water tank. So as proposed, the MF14 land use designation would actually serve as a transition between the lands to the west that are designated high-density residential and the lands to the north and south that are designated intermediate density residential pursuant to our comprehensive plan or suburban residential pursuant to Washoe County's master plan. And lastly, finding CP4 again requires public notice be given. The statutorily required neighborhood meeting was conducted by the applicant on August 22nd. There were no members of the public that attended that meeting, and public notice was also published in the Reno Gazette-Journal on September 6th. To date, staff has received no phone calls, no written correspondence related to this proposed amendment. And so staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the comprehensive plan amendment request before you tonight. You can see a suggested motion to that effect on the slide overhead and also in your packet. And with that, I will wrap up and be available for any questions.
Thank you, Sienna. Applicant, do you have anything else to add?
Good evening again. Stacy Huggins with Wood Rogers, for the record, representing the applicant in this comp plan amendment. I just wanted to point out this handbook, and if you said this, Sienna, I apologize, but this handbook was originally approved in 2006. Nothing has happened on this site since then. The handbook is very limiting in the uses. It specifically talks about townhomes. The current property owner and the applicant would really like to be able to bring multifamily apartments to this site. It's consistent with what is adjacent to it to the west, which is why we are going through this amendment, this comp plan amendment. Likely, if this was approved, we would come in with a handbook amendment to allow multifamily within this overall area. So I just wanted you to have an idea of why we're doing it and what the long-term plan is for this current applicant. So other than that, I don't have anything to say. Staff did a great job summarizing our request.
Thank you, Stacy. Being as this is a public hearing, we will open this up for public comment at this time. Anybody wishing to make public comment? Okay. Nobody wishing to make public comment, we will close public comment. Do you have questions, discussion? All right. I am ready to entertain a motion then. Commissioner Rawson.
I move to adopt Resolution 239, adopting the Comprehensive Plan Land Use Amendment, MPA 23-006, associated with PCN 04074, amending the Comprehensive Plan Land Use Designation for an 8.75 acre site located at 3755 Moore Park Court. APM 026-021-3, 20 and 61 for IDR to multifamily residential, and 14 based on findings CP1 through CP4 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Roston, a second by Commissioner Pritzos. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Cast your votes here. Thank you, and the motion passes. Thank you, Sienna. Thank you, Stacy. All right. Next up, general business. Whew.
Thank God.
Consideration, discussion, and possible recommendation to the mayor of planning commissioners to serve as first, second, third, and fourth alternates to the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission effective immediately from the following pool of applicants listed in alphabetical order: Evan Pritzos, Mike Rawson, Ricky Rodriguez Elkins, and Steven Sperber. The open alternate position is due to the regular term appointment of Commissioner Nieberline as a regional planning commissioner. So I will make the motion, because I can, I guess. Brandon said I could.
I won't stop you.
Okay. As discussed in the study session, everybody picked a number, so I move to, let me see. I move to recommend to the city of Sparks Mayor Commissioner Sperber as the first alternate, Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins as the second alternate, Commissioner Rawson as the third alternate, and Commissioner Pritzos as the fourth alternate to the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission effective immediately. Can I get a second?
I'll second that motion, Madam Chairwoman.
I have a motion by myself and a second by Commissioner Nieberline. Any discussion? Anybody want to change the order?
Nope, it's fine.
Okay, I thought you would, I thought you'd say so. All right. And can I get you to cast your votes? Thank you. All right, this will go to the mayor. It doesn't go to council, does it?
It does.
It does, okay, it goes to
Chair.
mayor to the council.
I anticipate the second meeting in October.
Okay, no worries. All right. Let's see where we're at. Do we have any announcements this time?
I don't have any, Chair.
Okay, I think you already said yours. We're at our final public comment. I will open it for public comment. Anybody wishing to make public comment at this time? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Staff comments and announcements?
I don't have any, Chair.
Okay. Commissioner comments and announcements? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time tonight. This was a longer one than normal, than I've been used to.
It's about time.
And we are adjourned.